Hello and welcome back to day 7 of the 12 Days of Christmas Watercolor Challenge. I cannot believe that we are already over halfway done with our challenge and you are doing an amazing job. Please continue to paint along and post your submissions of each of your paintings over in our private Facebook group. If you're just joining for the very first time, it's definitely not too late and these replays will be made available for you. All you need to do is sign up for the challenge to get these free printable outlines. I'll leave a link in the description below in this video and you'll get access to the rest of the videos as well as a supplies guide and the cute little dogs that we are going to be painting today. And I also want to mention that on day 12, I am going to be painting a realistic dog portrait in watercolor, a brand new dog that I have never taught before. And I'm so excited about that. That is going to be the grand finale of this challenge. So be sure to mark your calendars for December 12th. I will actually be there live teaching that in real time with you guys and showing you how to paint a dog portrait in watercolor, a realistic one. So here we have three little, we have a Dachshund, a Husky, and a Corgi dressed up for the holidays. So these are going to be more lighthearted, smaller illustrations that I think will just make the cutest little card. You could put a little fun saying at the bottom like Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas, whatever you guys think would be really fun and cute, or just leave it plain like this. So yeah, today is going to be more just fun, lighthearted, and then on December 12th, we are going to get realistic and paint one dog, their face, and focus in on the details. It's one of my very favorite classes that I teach the entire year, so hopefully you can attend that live. If you can't, there will be a replay, so don't worry. Okay, you guys, can't wait to get started, and I am going to work from left to right with our dogs today, and I really could probably choose either the medium large or the small medium brush that I have. Any medium-sized brush, I should say, will be perfect for today's painting. So I'm going to grab my size 6, which is kind of on the smaller size, and I'm going to go ahead and get my brush wet, ready to paint. My paints are dried today. I have not painted with them yet, so I'll also be getting those paints wet, so just adding in a little bit of water. So I am going to be using Payne's Gray and my burnt umber, any type of brown. I'm going to be mixing those two to create the really dark colors for our dogs. That is my favorite combination for creating black dark colors. So let's go ahead and grab our Payne's Gray, just pull it out onto your palette. Then I'm going to grab some of my burnt umber, which I might need to put some more out here, but I think it should be okay for right now. I'm just going to grab a little bit of that. And I'm going to color mix right here on my palette. It's going to create that blackish dark brown color, which is what I am going for. So if you need to make it more black-like, just add more Payne's Gray to the brown. There you can see that that color is getting nice and dark. Okay. Making sure not to have your brush too wet because this is such a small area. You want to have at least, some good control and not pooling. Let's start by adding in that dark paint into this Dachshund's ear here. So again, this is going to be lighthearted, just focusing on simple shapes. We will show some light and dark contrast and values within this dog, but really focusing on just fun, lighthearted illustration. So hopefully you enjoy this style. I think it's really fun to switch it up since I paint a lot of really realistic pet portraits, usually in the sizes of like 8x10 and 11x14, where you can get really nice and realistic. These smaller paintings like this are fun just to have like a cute little doodle almost. Okay, so going to continue to mix with that same brown and like Payne's Gray mixture. So let's go ahead and fill in the face. There are going to be just a few little brown spots in this dog. So just gonna do the very best I can to leave kind of like the center of the face and neck white for now. I will go through and add a really warm caramely brown color. So as you can see, I'm just working around in the neck and then going to work up into the dog's face. So let's kind of paint around the eyes the best you can. I'm just going to leave those nice and white. I know this will be a little tricky, especially for how tiny they are. So again, a smaller brush is going to be helpful, especially in the face area. Okay, grab a little bit more. I don't have a ton of water on my brush because that way I'm really able to make sure that this paint is not going to pool and just look too messy and hard to control. Okay, so let me show you what I've done so far. So all I did was take that brown and that Payne's gray combination, and then I painted the ears and the side of the face and left the snout and the eyes open, and also the middle of the neck. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, continue down into the dog's body, and we are going to paint this part underneath the bow, this nice dark color. Now again, if you know, I'm painting it wouldn't be a tricolor, it's a two-color Dachshund, the black and the brown. So I'm going to paint down that far, and then there will be a little bit of that same caramely orangey brown marking down right here in the center of this dog's body. And we'll continue to leave that piece open. Add a little Payne's gray to that so it gets a little bit darker. Don't worry if you can't color mix exactly the color you were just using. That is no big deal when it comes to pet portraits. That happens all the time where the colors are always looking different in different areas of the dog. So don't worry if the combination of black that you're creating is not the same, because mine is definitely different here than it is from up in the ears, which I think looks nice and more lifelike. Okay, so now I left that little area there for the brown markings, and then the paws are also going to have that brown marking. So I'll just grab a little more of our mixed up black color. You can just use black if that's what you have in your palette. I think that would be really cute for this more lighthearted illustration as well. But if you do have a Payne's gray to mix with a brown, I highly recommend playing around with that. I think you'll enjoy just that color combination and what it creates, and kind of gives it more of a lighter appearance, not so stark. All right, so I did one little swipe on each of the dog's front arms or legs, and then also going to do a little swipe towards the back leg there. Okay, and then the rest of that is going to get that warm caramel brown color that we're going to create. Okay, we are going to use, if you have a burnt sienna in your palette, that is going to be perfect for these markings along with the yellow ochre. Okay, so just getting this burnt sienna activated with some water. And then I'm also going to get my yellow ochre ready to paint with. So sometimes you just have to really kind of run your brush over it with some water if you are also working from a dry paint like I am. Okay. So here I have my yellow ochre, and I'm going to put a little bit of our burnt sienna brown in there, so it's going to give me a good combination of both. And dabbing my paper towel, I want to make sure I don't have too much again. We're going to fill in the sections that we did not paint black, besides the eyes and the actual nose of our dog here. So again, we'll just paint that right in. It's going to look funny until we just give it a little bit more value around the neck here and the chin. But I'm not worried about that right now. Let's just get those sections painted. So yeah, you can see his two eyes and nose right there. Grab a little bit more. Fill in this part down below in the kind of the chest belly area. Okay, there's that. I need to mix up just a tiny bit more of that. And also adding it into the paws of the feet, and one in the back. The one in the back definitely needs to be darker because it's being more shadowed. So maybe add a little bit of your burnt umber brown, so something a little darker, just to show that it is farther back. And same with this leg part right there. You can kind of see that. And let's use that same darker color for kind of that underbelly area right there. Okay. Looking very cute so far. So like I mentioned, we'll just add in some simple shadows. So if you have this burnt umber, just any type, or Van Dyke brown, just any type of darker brown, let's use that for underneath the mouth here. So underneath the chin, I'm just going to do a little swipe of that brown, and same with kind of the mouth here. So you can kind of see that part come to life. And let's just add a little bit down into the neck, just so I just pulled it down a little bit. And then let's see, let's add this into the side of the nose. So we know the nose comes out towards us, so we just need to give it a little more of a shape. So using a very thin pressure of my brush, I'll just paint those two little lines there. I know that looks funny, so let's get rid of the paint on our brush by adding water and dabbing our paper towel. We're just going to take a clean brush and just kind of smooth and blend that little part out there. Okay, that looks good. Smooth out anywhere else that you think looks like it needs to be kind of softened. Let's grab a little more of our brown color, and we'll just help define the paws. So I'll just run a little bit of that right underneath the paw area down here, like that. But again, I am not trying to get super detailed with this painting. This is just going to be fun little, kind of like a little illustration logo of a Dachshund. Okay, so now before we go and do the actual details of the eyes, let's just add in a little bit of a darker area to define the face away from the dog's ears. So I'm just going to grab some more of our brown and Payne's gray combination, and let's just do a swipe kind of along the face and ears there, and do one on this side as well. And anywhere else you want to add any shadows. I mean, I think it looks so cute as is, but you could add a little bit into the middle part here of the belly. But otherwise, I think that looks really good and cute. I don't think I want to add too much and take away from this light little illustration. Maybe I do want to add one more little thing, and that is to the bridge of the dog's nose and eye area. So just a little bit of that dark paint color that we have. Let's just add it in there. I also realized that I'm missing the little orange details of the eyebrows, which are very signature to the Dachshund. So this will actually be kind of tricky for me to add those back in, unfortunately. So if you want to, maybe just grab, it depends on how dark of a base you created here. You could lift some of the paint out. Otherwise, I'm just going to take a lot of my burnt sienna brown and just put a little bit of a dot, and that should show up okay. I don't know if you can kind of see that little area right there. Okay. Let's paint in that cute little nose. Maybe I'll switch to a smaller brush, my fine liner brush. So something in like the 0, 000 range. This is a good place where you could use the black if you have a black in your palette. Otherwise, continue to mix your brown and your Payne's gray. But I'll just use the ivory black that I have. Now, you don't want too much water in your brush. You don't want it to pool. I want it to be a nice dark color. So I'll paint in those little nostrils there. Again, this is like a good practice of painting really tiny. I'm gonna let that part dry, and I'm just going to do my best to try and outline the eye area with this black color, like this. And let's grab some more black, and let's just paint in a little bit of a dot, but leave a little bit of white too. That's where you're going to get that shine. So I know it's going to take a really small brush because this is such a small dog that we're painting, but something like that is perfect if you can do that. Otherwise, paint it all black and just use like a gel pen and put a little white dot for the shine. Okay, I'm just going to grab a little bit of the black, so a lighter amount, and also just going to dab my paper towel so I don't have too much, and just going to, there, I didn't even get enough, paint down and around the lower half of this nose and outline the top. But then I'll leave the top of the nose the white of the paper because it gives it a nice shine. Okay, super cute. I am just going to leave them like that. I'm not going to add any more detail. Feel free to add more detail if you are able to and want to, but otherwise I'm going to move into just painting his antlers and this little red bow. So for the antlers, we're going to do a similar color to the kind of caramel color that we have in the dog's chest area here. So if you have the burnt sienna and yellow ochre, I would use a somewhat medium to light amount of that to start to paint in the reindeer ears or antlers. Okay. Just like that. I'm not going to do anything super fancy with these. Just filling them in like that. And then for the bow, I am going to do it as a traditional red bow. So I'll use the alizarin crimson that I have. I'll use quite a bit of it, especially around this, the tie, like the center of the bow here. I'll just do a little bit of a circle around there. Okay, so now let's pick up like a medium amount and paint in the rest of the bow. So here are these two little ends. And one thing that I will make sure to do is make the loops of the bow a little bit lighter. So just using more water, less paint, like that. And then that way it gives it a little more interest instead of being one flat color. And then I'll paint in with very little amount of paint to the center. So you should be able to see that little circle that we created originally to tie the bow together like that. All right. At the end, I'll add shadows to each of the dogs so they don't look like they're floating. But all right, that one looks really cute. Let's move on to our Husky here. So this one will make pretty simple since it is just two colors. We'll start by, it's kind of nice. We've already really mixed up the black color that I'll be using, or you can use the black in your palette. So the brown and the Payne's Gray mixed together. You'll want more Payne's Gray than the brown because it needs to be almost like a bluish black color. Okay, let's start by just simply outlining the ear here, like that. If you need to pull up a picture or reference photo of a Husky, you can kind of see the markings. They're usually pretty similar. So we'll just do a little piece there underneath this ear. This one's tricky because we have a Santa hat on this ear, so we don't need to paint it, but I'll just add a little bit of that dark color to this side. And then also they have like these really pretty markings that go straight down the center of their forehead, kind of leading down towards the nose. like that. Okay, I'll continue to just use this paint kind of coming down around the Husky's face and into the neck where the scarf is, like that. And doing the same on this other side. And filling that piece in. Okay, looks good. I'll just even pick up a little bit of water just to really dilute the color of that, make it more gray. And this is what I'll use to create that light marking on his chest or her chest, whatever your preference is. I don't know why I keep calling them all he's. Okay, now I will pick up a little bit more and add it into the back side. Again, this is supposed to be pretty lighthearted. You can't really mess this up. Just making it these simple shapes with very few colors. Bringing it down into the leg. So I'll just kind of go like this. Down into the leg part. Okay. Getting rid of some of that paint so we have more of that gray color. I'll pull it down into the arm area. So right along the edge of the arm, like that. Adding a little bit of that light gray into between the front arms of the dog, like that. And then I'll use a little bit more of this paint just to help kind of give a good outline to the dog. Even though it's mostly white, I'm just going to use a little bit of that paint color to really define the edge of our dog, almost like we're just drawing the outline, like that. Do the same thing for this paw. Yeah. Let's see, I think I want to bring some of that gray color in on the side as well, kind of mimicking. So that's the nice thing about this type of breed is they're pretty symmetrical in their markings. So we'll just kind of bring that in on that side as well. And I see one little foot in the back here poking out, and I'll just use it to outline that, like that. Okay. And then the tail, just pick up a little bit more of our gray. And now I'll do in some actual like flared out texture, like the hair texture, or to give the illusion that this tail does have some nice long hair. Do some coming back. And this is where you could add in like a light brown. I just added a little bit of water to help smooth out and give it kind of a lightish gray tail in general, like that. But you could pick up a little bit of brown. Let's see, so if I just pick up a little bit of my burnt umber, just add that in. Sometimes Huskies have that brownish gray color. If you did that, it would be good to try and add it in maybe in one other little place. So maybe up here in the side of the body, like that. Okay. Let's see. So now I want to add it into some darker areas into the face. If you have a little bit of that light gray still in your palette, that's what you'll use to help kind of give a little bit of a shadow around the mouth. And again, this can be really, really light. So I'll just pick up more water, just trying to kind of smear that around. Don't cover the entire face. It's going to make a lot more sense once we get the nose and the mouth and the eyes in. Okay, let's see. Anything else we could add a little bit more on this side? That, but I'm going to stop right there. So now let's add in the nose and the tongue, and then we'll be able to add in the dark of the mouth. Okay. So I'm going to switch to my tiny fine liner brush for the nose, just like we did on the Dachshund. I'm going to use this black. Again, not too much water where you can't control. It's just a little area, so you don't need too much water. And we'll do the same where we do our little nostril dots. And then let's add this dark color to the outer edge of this dog's eye. Okay, so something like that. And then this one. That. Mine are not perfect at all, so do not worry if you don't get them perfectly symmetrical in shape. Okay, so now I'll take this dark paint color again, this black, and we are going to paint in kind of the smile or that dark upper area to the dog's mouth. Like that. And kind of down on the side of the tongue here. Okay, let's paint in the nose, which I know is looking kind of funny. So you can outline the top, and then as you work your way down, fill in the bottom half of the nose. It comes really pretty close to the line of the mouth that you just painted. So something like that. Okay. Let's paint in the dot or the pupil of the eye with this black, but it really is a light color, so it could be like a light blue. Huskies have these really pretty crystal blue eyes, but our painting is so small, so it'll be really hard to get that in there, so something like that. Okay. Done with that tiny brush for now. I'm going to pick up my small medium brush, size 6. And painting the warm pinkish color for the ear and also the tongue. Same kind of color scheme. So I'll grab my alizarin crimson and I'm just going to mix in a tiny bit of blue to that. So let's see, just grab a little bit. If you have the ultramarine blue, just add a little bit into your red. It's going to give you almost like a purpley color. Let's start by painting the back of this dog's tongue, like that. Gives it a good shadow. Okay, so that's all I wanted for that. Now let's grab very little amount of our alizarin crimson and paint the front of the dog's tongue. Okay, let's grab a little more of the alizarin crimson, very, very little amount, and just going to paint that little piece. You can even see it right there. Okay, great. Let's paint in the hat and the scarf. So Santa hat, definitely going to be red. I just need to put a little more into my palette. Okay, so just kind of like we did with the bow, let's grab a good amount of it, not too much water, but more so paint. And this is what's going to be that nice dark area where the white trim meets the red Santa hat and kind of go along the edge there. Okay, now I'll go ahead and dip my paintbrush in the water and dab my paper towel. So I just have a lighter amount of it. I can do that again. I'm just going to smooth that up and then down into the point of the hat. So you can see it gave it just a nice little shadow area right there. Okay. And then for the scarf, let's see. I think I'll do that in, you know what? I think I'm going to do all of it in red. As you can see, I'm painting this in real time with you guys. So I am going to stick with all of these hats and scarves and bows in red, but feel free to have fun and try a different color if you would like. Just keep it simple. So I am going to outline just kind of like what we did with the bow, kind of right there around the knot where I have the most paint. and add a little bit more into this part of the scarf. Okay, then I just want a little bit of that red to pull to the edge where it's going to be lighter. Like that. And we can use the light amount to paint in the center part of the scarf there. Okay, pick up a little bit more. Again, wherever the knot is, that's where it's going to be the darkest area. So something like that. Pick up water, dab your paper towel, and bring it out to the end of these scarf tails. Like that. Great, grab a little bit more. This back part to the scarf can be darker. Try your best not to touch the area you just painted with this other scarf tail. If you do, no big deal, but something like that gives it some nice dimension. Can always use some of that excess paint to paint around the top and bottom of the scarf if you need to add a little bit more to that. Okay. And when it comes to painting in the little white area of our Santa hat, if you have any Payne's Gray, a really light amount already mixed up on your palette, or just grab a little bit, I'm just going to use that for kind of just the edge of the Santa hat. And then also our little puff ball there at the end too. All right. Cute. Let's see. Anything else I want to add to our Husky? Again, if you want to add in the blue to the eyes, you could also add in maybe a little more of a shadow into the bridge of the nose and around the eyes. You just don't want to add too much to take away. So I just added a little tiny shadow area there. But otherwise, I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Let's work on this dog. This is a Corgi, which I actually don't get to paint these quite often, so I think that's why I chose that. And I just love their little faces, so I think they're perfect for a fun card like this. So the Corgi is definitely going to use the yellow ochre, so let's start there. It's almost pretty close to the color of the dog's fur, but I am going to mix in a little bit of our burnt sienna brown just to warm that up a little bit so it's not so gold. Okay, dab our paper towel. I'll use that to trim the dog's ear, like around the ear there. You can do the same on this ear. We're not going to fill in the whole ear, just get the outer edge. And then also filling in these little sections. So I have a little part there and up and around the dog's eye. I'm just going to add a little bit of water and dab my paper towel because I just feel like I have too much color. I would like it to be a little bit lighter. And so to do that, you just have to add more water and less paint to your brush. Okay, so filling in this little light golden patch there. Now I just need to pick up a little bit more and bring it down into the side of the dog's body and along the back. This is where I'll definitely be adding in more of a brown. So this burnt umber, I'll just grab a little bit of that, mix it with our yellow ochre just to make it more brown-like. Okay, so I'll fill that part in. That'll be a nice color to also use for shadows up into the face. So again, the yellow ochre and the burnt umber. Bringing it all the way down into the back here. Even going to paint in the foot back here. This area up here is white, so I'm not going to touch that with this brown color. Okay. Something like that. If you have any one of these dog breeds, if you own one, I'd love to hear about that. Just let us know in the comments. I've never owned any of these 3 dogs, so I have met them, but I've never had one. Okay, I'm gonna grab more of just the burnt umber this time. And that is what I'll use to create a little bit of a shadow. So kind of down right around the back area here of the butt area and also on the under part of the leg. And then we'll also add it into the top of the back. Now, if your area here is still wet, it should just blend really nicely like that. And also going to add a little bit right there just to define the leg area here. Okay, let's see, anything else? I think I want to add a little bit more down underneath the front leg here and into the belly. Like that. Okay. Grabbing a little bit more, I do not need much because this is what I'll use just to give a little bit of a shadow where the hat meets the dog's forehead there. And maybe a little bit kind of going down into the nose between the eyes. Pick up a little bit of water and you can just use that to smooth out that area. Something like that. Okay, great. So for the white area, we're going to do similar to what we did with the Husky with this really light gray. So hopefully you still have some mixed up, would be the Payne's gray mixed with the burnt umber, brown, anything to create that grayish color. So again, you don't want too much on your brush, so pick up water, dab your paper towel. Let's just use that as kind of the edging to the dog's chest there. And then also outline the leg. Let's bring it up here too. It's gonna look darker on the screen than what it is on my paper, so take note, you really don't need a whole lot. Just pick up a little bit of water and we'll smooth out that area if it feels too dark. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing on around the mouth area, so a little bit of gray right there. And maybe some along the bridge of the nose. The nice thing about dogs that have markings like this, it almost gives you that shape and illusion of how the bridge of the nose is shaped. So I really don't need much there. Okay, smooth out your paint however you need. And let's go ahead and paint in those ears, same as what we did with the Husky. Let's just grab our alizarin crimson and paint in right here with mostly water, just a little bit of that red on both sides here. And then there's actually a nice little white edging like there. Okay, so again, not very dark. We could make it a little bit darker, but for this, kind of like I said, this is supposed to be a lighthearted, simpler illustration of dogs. So let's just leave it at that for now and then paint in, whoops, actually, let's stick with this brush. I forgot this dog has its cute little tongue sticking out. So grab the red again. Now, I don't want it to be too dark. You don't want it to stand out too much. So there, just put a little red there. Okay, now I'll switch back to this tiny fine liner brush, and now we can go through and add in the details of the nose and the eyes. So staying consistent and using the black in my palette to outline. So the Corgi definitely has some nice dark, thick outlines to the eyes, and they're a lot more round than the Husky. So we'll kind of do bigger around her eyes, like this. Okay, so there, you can kind of see those round eyes. Again, let's do the pupil area and try our best to leave a little bit of white for the dog's eye, if you can. So just do little tiny dots like that. Okay, I am going to just flare out the eye a little bit on the edges there. There. Okay, let's do the dog's nose. So picking up more of that black. Again, it's kind of hard when you use a really tiny brush to get the right amount of paint and water. Okay, so there's those. I know it looks really funny. And then we will do the edge of the dog's smile. So I'm just going to do a thin little line around this side of the dog's mouth. Okay, there. And then also around the dog's tongue. Looks so funny. Let's paint in the rest of the nose. It's okay if you lose the nostrils. It's such a small painting. I'm just going to try and leave a little bit of the upper part. Like that. Okay, looking much better. Actually looks more like a dog. Okay. I do think I want to add in just a little bit of a darker part to the bridge of the nose here. Just looks like it's a little too flat. So I'm just going to add a little bit of brown there. Like that. Okay. Looks good. Let's go and add in the red to the hat. I just think that looks really nice where they are all matching. But if you decide to do something different, I can't wait to see what you end up doing. Maybe your Husky has a green scarf, plaid scarf, just something a little bit different. Okay, so I put in the darkest part there. And now I'll just pick up a little bit of water and bring down that color. Be careful not to make it too light because we want it to really stand out against the pink of the ear. So let's add in a little bit more there. Okay. So same as what we did for this Santa hat, we're just going to grab a little bit of Payne's Gray. So a really light amount of it. And we'll use that to kind of outline in like a squiggle motion to give the impression of kind of a fuzzy texture. Okay, there we are with those 3 adorable dogs. And like I mentioned, I think just adding a little bit of a shadow to the bottom, it's just going to help to make it that the dogs aren't floating. So I actually switched to a larger brush, size 10. My favorite color to do shadows in is a Payne's Gray. So here I have just a really diluted area of Payne's Gray already on my palette. You don't really need a lot. I just need to kind of put a little bit next to these dogs here, like that, so then they don't look like they're floating. Okay, do the same for the other 2. Like that. Feel free to play around with different shadow colors. I just think that is always one of my favorite ones to use. All right, and same with this Corgi, needs a little bit right here. All right. And feel free to put the message, like I said, something fun or punny with dogs. But otherwise, here we have our 3 holiday themed puppies here for day 7. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with for today's painting. Please post a picture of yours over inside our Facebook group for the challenge, and that's where I will be recording your entries, because if you complete all 12 paintings by the deadline of December 14th, then you will be in the drawing for a free entry into Master Watercolor Dog Breeds, where you will learn how to paint 31 different dog breeds inside of that course. Okay, thanks so much for being here, and I cannot wait to see you all tomorrow.